Good afternoon, everybody. I am Karthik Sharma, Associate Editor in Elets Technomedia Private Limited. And today I welcome all of you in the Elets Pharma Leadership Summit 2021. And the major theme of this summit is embracing the digitalization in pharma industry with the new normal. So today, when the everything in the world is going to the passage of transformation, and especially the healthcare and pharma vertical, where the healthcare and pharma vertical is currently in the epicenter of whatever is going on in this COVID-19 pandemic. The center point is this vertical of healthcare and pharma, whether you talk of vaccination or the drugs to cure COVID-19 pandemic, and the other aspects of pharmaceutical industry and healthcare industry. So keeping in this mind, we have organized a two-day summit, Elets Pharma Leadership Summit, wherein in 2 days, more than 50 top pharmaceutical industry leaders are participating and discussing on various aspects of the industry, how the past has been and how the current present is doing, and how do they see the future. So similarly, in this particular session, it is our honor to have the eminent leadership in pharma industry, and especially the IT segment of the digital segment of the pharma industry. We are honored to have the leaders here in this session, and this session is on business transformation for a future-ready pharma enterprise. As you see, the businesses got impacted. There has been highs and lows in businesses in various sectors, and similarly in pharma sector also. So today in this panel discussion, we'll be talking how business transformation is taking place in this industry, and how future ready is this pharma enterprise is. And at the same time, we will be talking a bit about how technology can intervene, and how technology can help in business transformation in the pharma sector in current scenario and in the future. So I introduce once the panelist of this session to all of you. We are honored to have Mr. Atanu Roy, Group CIO of Biocon Group, here in this session. Welcome, Mr. Roy. And we have Dr. Avadut Parab, Global CIO of Vocard Pharmaceuticals. We welcome him. Mr. Narendra Seni, who is Chief Digital and Data Officer of Lupin. Welcome, Mr. Seni. Mr. Gyan Pandey, Chief Information Officer. Mr. Gyan Pandey, Chief Information Officer of Aurobindo Pharma. Welcome, Mr. Pandey.
Hi, everyone.
And Mr. Mahidwat Sisodia, Head of International Formulation Business, Cadila Pharmaceuticals Limited. Welcome, Mr. Sisodia.
Hi, good afternoon.
And we have industry leader, Mr. Pravesh Ghai, Vice President, Consumer and Life Sciences Industry, SAP India. Welcome, Mr. Pravesh. And with me to co-moderate this session, we have here Mr. Pushkar Bhatt, who is Business Development Lead in SAP Digital Core, SAP India. Welcome, Mr. Pushkar, and thank you for accepting this request of co-moderating this session. Mr. Pushkar, thank you so much.
Thanks, Karthik. It's a pleasure.
So, as audience has started joining in, this event and this session is going live on the virtual 3D platform of Elets Technomedia, which is called Avatar. And then hundreds of people are continuously watching this program, and from various sectors of pharma and healthcare. And for them, I would just request you guys, all the people who are watching, please keep asking questions and any queries you have for our speakers. At the end, we will take some of the selected questions from your the questions which you ask on the virtual 3D platform. So to start with this discussion, we will, as we all know, that the business environment is evolving. And if you see the last 1 year, and if you look forward to the future, there is an evolving business environment in the pharmaceutical industry. So there can be different trends, the new trends which we can observe. So I would like to ask our eminent panelist And I'll start with Mr. Tanu Roy. Mr. Roy, I would like to ask you that how is this business environment evolving in the Indian pharmaceutical industry, and what trends do you observe now, actually, when the world is in the new normal? What sort of trends do you see?
So actually things are evolving very, very fast. So the key thing, and I'll try with slightly ahead of the COVID and the pandemic. So the important dimensions in pharma industry was how do you use technology to ensure compliance, because that was one of the things which were lacking in pharma industries, was one of the priorities in the last couple of years, and that led to huge digitization. Industry 4.0, which would have been automating the labs or the future of the labs, which in the traditional course of time would have taken a lot of time, got accelerated very fast because organizations wanted to ensure that you are fully compliant and use technology to do that. So that led to not only implementing a lot of systems, but how do you integrate everything, digitize it, and actually set the foundations for paperless lab and industry 4.0. So that journey has continued and it will continue. But having that platform enables it very ripe for doing advanced analytics, and that is what is going to happen. What is the last year when COVID started, for the pharma industry, especially companies who had a large domestic business and products for the India market, telemedicine was a very important thing, and promoting telemedicine. So directly it is the pharma companies would not be doing that, but for the industry it was very important, because if doctors don't practice, then the whole thing stops. So that was a very important telemedicine platform, or M-Health type of platform, for years together was just not picking up. And it got adopted. Sophisticated telemedicine platforms got adopted very fast last year. And that trend is going to continue. But what I see now, extremely important, is like in the last 4 weeks, there has been so much demand suddenly for remdesivir, so much demand for itolizumab, and Cipla tocilizumab, which Cipla imports from Roche overseas. And itolizumab is manufactured by Biocon. Remdesivir is manufactured by about 6-7 pharma companies in India. The point is how, with agility, you can scale your manufacturing is so very important. And technology plays a significant role. And you need to be ready for the war. Like people say that in peace you prepare for war. So if you had the capability to debottleneck your manufacturing facilities, have the capacity in place, then you can quickly, you had the agility and ability to quickly shift products. So the agility of the supply chain and manufacturing effectiveness being significantly high, technology plays an extremely important role. Industry 4.0 plays an extremely important role in making that happen. And those things, the necessity and importance of it is being felt in situations like this. In month of Feb and March, requirement of remdesivir was hardly anything. For itolizumab, which in Biocon we manufacture, it was 200 vials a month. Now we have to manufacture 7,000 vials a month. Do we have the raw materials? Can we get the raw materials from our suppliers as quickly? Can we scale up the production within the factory? Can we do it faster? Can we release the batches faster? So all that thing, technology significantly helps, and one needs to be prepared for it. And I think this is lot of work needs to be done. It is not only technology, but technology is the main enabler, but other things, how you design the process accordingly, how do you debottleneck stuff, how do you create the overall management structure in place to make that happen. So I think these are the things which I would say that technology earlier started with. When in pharma industry, I see compliance becoming a main driver, which started few years back. That led to paperless operations, And the benefits of paperless operations in quality control lab as well as in manufacturing, which is industry 4.0 as the terminology goes, becomes a huge enabler and a driver to scale up production and shift between one product to another product and increase the OEE of the plants and the manufacturing facility. Similarly, on the other side, how do you launch products faster? How do you do discovery faster? How do you do R&D of new products faster? That is the other area where technology is playing a significant role in launching products faster, with not only doing automation across the product development life cycle, but using analytics to make less mistakes and learn from past experiments.
Right, Mr. Roy rightly said that uh, uh, even last year saw huge transformation. When you say that telemedicine picked up from last many years it was not able to, and also you said that when demand of remdesivir and such drugs, booms up so fastly, and how you do R&D, how do you meet the demand with your supply, and how all the things, logistics for raw materials. So technology helps it becomes an enabler, rightly said. But again, I would like to ask another leader, Dr. Avadut Parab, who is global CIO of Vucard Pharmaceuticals. Mr. Parab, some of the points mentioned by Mr. Roy, uh, do you have some more ideas and some more observations of this transformation in pharmaceutical industry?
Okay, thank you, Karthik, and thank you, Atanu. Good afternoon, everyone. Atanu definitely touched the majority of the points. One of the area which all of us fairly mastered is how to deal with uncertainty without a kind of plan. That itself says that every organization has become agile now, because from last 2 years the kind of uncertainties which we are dealing with is very very high, which only ended up in saying that we need the urgency was yesterday, we need to meet so fast. So while you are meeting, it is assumed that compliance is inbuilt into it, you are taking care of that, but the dates are very 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 stringent. Now keeping aside this, when the before pandemic, we were taking one thing granted, was a internal customer focus was always taken for granted, and we used to think about how do we ensure that we do best with our external customer or the true customer. When they actually, when we are still going through the phase, we learned we need to give a comfort, because 60 or 50% of the people are really working from anywhere. How do you ensure that their efficiency, their effectiveness does not go down, and which will impact the whole operation? So everybody offers learn something called remote uh, service as an offering within the organization, so that the focus went to an internal customer. We ensured that they don't fall short of, because of the connectivity, because of the stringent rule of cyber security or some kind of infrastructure they are unable to produce. So the delightment of how to delight our internal customer was never a priority, but during the phase, and it is still going on, we have the focus has shifted to that, and we as an organization, we felt that was one thing good we did it, so that when the next step comes, they talking to the customer, they talking to our partners, they talking to our suppliers or vendors, they had enough information, they have enough access, they have enough details, so that they could do their job better. So this is something which was taken for granted, but got into a big focus. That's second part of it is, how do we also bring the focus was shifted to operation technology more than the IT, because to a large extent in most of the companies, our IT side, when I say IT side, these are more function like supply chain, so finance or sales. they were well equipped. Of course, we padded them, as Natano said, whether it is doctor engagement in the form of a telemedicine, in the form of a collaboration, in the form of not only doctors but the stockist also. We started collaborating them as closely as we're doing with the doctor. So these engagement happened, but the focus also went to operational technology in a sense, from the cyber security perspective. How do I get those insights so that the demand which comes as you said, remdesivir or any other product, every company has its own priority to meet in the market, or you have to supply to the overseas or to supply to some other countries. And how do you give the attention towards operation technology and get into the analytics, which was not so focused earlier. It was limited to the extent of compliance, limited to the extent of a key KPIs, but it went beyond. We started measuring something called OTIF, which is also for the customer and vendor. We started measuring internal on-time in-full approach, whether it is quality OTIF, whether it is manufacturing OTIF, so that it started giving you more and more control and more and more insights. So these are some of the areas I feel organizations started looking in different perspective from it was always inside out, but now it is starting focusing on inside. What best you can do, how best you can not only control or protect, but also bring that responsiveness to the internal customer and the external customer. That's my view.
Right, Dr. Parab rightly said that how to invest in operational technology and analytics has been the key. Now I will request another speaker of this session, Mr. Narendra Seni, who is Chief Digital and Data Officer of renowned pharma organization Lupin. Mr. Narendra, I would like to ask you that how do you see how has this last year been for the industry, and what were the lessons learned or the observations which can help in future growth and future revenues of the pharma industry or a pharma organization? So how do you see the last year of COVID-19 pandemic for the industry, learnings, outcomes, and the opportunities for future growth? Yeah, you're on mute, sir. If you please unmute yourself.
Yeah, I think Atanu and Avdut have already covered most of it. Am I audible?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. So they have left very little for others, but still, I think when it comes to last year, I think many times the gap between IT and the business has been generally large. I think last year what has changed is that IT and business have come together, be it sales, be it manufacturing, be it supply chain, whatever it is. But the gap has reduced. This has been one of the major push. Where earlier, if we would have to talk about telemedicine portal, as Atanu has just talked about, I think convincing would take a lot of time. But now it's happening other way around, right? So the management, they are looking for new channels for sales, new channels of engagement. So this is changing. This is changing, completely. So I believe the technology and the business gap is reducing. That's been one of the major contribution of last 1 year. Apart from that, I think if you see, pharma has been generally a laggard when it comes to industry 4.0, largely because it has been compliance heavy industry, by and large. But I think this year, most of the industry leaders, I would say almost all pharma companies, have realized that it is important to look beyond the challenges of compliance, and probably look at also how to go about for all the compliance related mechanism as well. Probably this is also a time when I would say that FDA and other compliance agencies would relax some of the norms. That is yet to be seen, but I believe that will be one major push to the pharma industry. And pharma industry, if that happens, would probably lead the way of digital transformation next couple of years to come. So I can go on, but I think I'll give chance to other speakers as well. We can come back on this one.
Yes, I'll come back to you with more questions. At the same time, I would like to ask you, Mr. Gyan Pandey, Chief Information Officer of Aurobindo Pharma. Mr. Pandey, do you see a culture of innovation, cropping up in pharma industry? Looking at this last year, maybe a time of challenge and opportunities for pharma sector. Do you see this industry seek more innovations, or it is already going towards taking up more and more innovations in the pharmaceutical industry? Your views, Mr. Pandey, please.
Thank you, Karthik. I think last year, what are the challenges and how the industry has overcome this part very well covered by our co-panelist and Atanu, Avadhut, and as well as Narendra. Now, when we talk about whether pharmaceutical industry is becoming more and more innovative, pharma as a nature of the business itself, one of the core of the business of the pharma is R&D and innovation. So that has in this last 1 year, what has happened that this innovation has been ushered not only to the R&D area, but the way we operate, the way we collaborate, the way we interact with the external and internally. Those innovations, and more than the innovations, the very important thing that adoption of those things has also happened in a very fast way. Generally, when you bring any innovative things and all, the change management is always a challenge. But in last 1 year, whether it was a change in the technology, the change in any of the implementations, new modules, new applications, or new processes, it was adopted, and it was adopted in a way that we all have to embrace, and more proactively and collaboratively, people have supported that, and it has come in a way that to make it successful, in a way that it will not, the project timeline will not go longer, and we all should become productive in this. When we talk of specifically of innovations, yes, I will touch upon the point that, okay, we are sitting on an inflex point where probably there is going to be a revolution in the way the pharma industry or within the operations or the activities we do. By saying this, what I mean is that though the adoption of Industry 4.0, it all started, the adoption was very slow for the regions, either with this underlying infrastructure or your quality processes, or there could be some other challenges from organization to organization. But with the COVID and all, those adoptions have become faster. What has been realized by the across industry, and pharma is not the exception, that we have to build an IT platform which should be more sustainable in the future, digital, agile, collaborative. And this would bring a lot of transparency to the processes, not only to the transparent to the process, but across the processes. This whole thing, when we bring it to the OT side, it brings a lot more data. And when we start working on the data over a period, the organization culture, the way we operate, the decisions being based on your functional data or your department data, that will change, and it will have the input from the data which is inflowing and the data which is outflowing. So you'll have a more insightful decision, and that can be enabled only more and more by using the data and analytics out of that. So at this point of time, if I say that we'll start using advanced analytics or artificial intelligence, I think it is little too early for most of the organizations. I'm not saying that some of the organizations may be in that journey, but I'm sure that in different phases or different processes, this kind of journey has started, and this will basically it will go to further to the process, and decision making will become more insightful. We probably will be in another couple of years or 5 years down the line, will be more kind of predictive in every approach, whether it is maintenance, whether it is utility, whether it is manufacturing, supply chain, logistic. Those processes also come to the predictive, and this is only possible when we start using the different silos and repository of data internally within system, and also externally with your service provider, logistic operators, the regulatory agencies, and all that. So the change in the mindset of internally within the culturally, that okay, how to use the data and how to take the decisions, that is going to happen. And innovations in the way we operate, maybe the way organization culture itself will change, and the way as an organization, and that means different organogram, we will be working more and more with this digitally enabled environment where decisions or the action points will be coming from the, let's say, the machines, and the people have to take the decisions, whether it is success, failure, or yes, no, or go ahead or not. So that is the things will be coming as an innovative way in the future. That's what I feel.
Right. Thank you, Mr. Pandey. And now I will be coming to you, Mr. Mahidwaj Sisodia. You are heading the international formulation business for Cadila Pharmaceuticals Limited. You are at the business side and commercial side of any organization. So we got to know that yes, IT is important in the coming as one of the major trends in this pharmaceutical industry. How do you see a person from a business and commercial side of an organization? How do you see this industry evolved in last year? How do you see the impact of COVID-19 pandemic, and how do you see the trends? Do you also agree that digitalization will be a key coming forward in coming years, or what are your views as a person from a business side, commercial side of the business?
Yeah, so thanks, Karthik, once again. As my previous speakers have already covered a lot of it, I would like to add to what has already been spoken as on this moment. So first of all, if I have to look at from organizational perspective, digitization has never been such a priority of the organizations. And as Narendra has very well said, during this period, the gap between the IT and business has narrowed down to the extent probably we would have never been able to do it if the COVID would have not been there. So the entire business transformation from digitization point of view was overdue. Everybody knew, everybody was working upon it, but it never got the attention, focus of the organization, the management as it got it now. And it has not only changed, as one of the earlier speaker also spoke about, is that the internal customer thing. Now, we always taken the internal customers for granted. It's because of the digitizations and this remote working, etc. The lines have got blur between the internal customers concept and the outside customers. So more and more customer orientation has come internally also. The way things have changed in last 1 year also has been about the way we deal with the various stakeholders of the organization. So whether it's about agencies, we have started talking more and more desktop audits. There has been more transparency in terms of sharing of the data online and so on and so forth. And also the way we have been approaching to the market. So whether it's about your trade partners, whether it's about medical fraternity, there have been initially a lot of challenges that how do we communicate, because we were always been prisoners to this idea that there are few things which can done in person only. Like I come from the international business point of view. So every time whenever we thought about a big problem or something which is burning, we'll say, let's fly down. But now that since that option is out of mind, out of talk, we came out with different ways to handle it, and we have done it well. So because when we look at our export data from India, we have shown a growth of 18%. No doubt, few of the COVID specific products or the services have helped us to get some additional growth. But still, I think as an industry, we have done very good job. So I have to categorize it in two terms, basically. One, from the organizational point of view, again, the way entire structure was there, the way entire decision making was there, it has gone under tremendous change. Gone are those days which were typical structure based, metrics based. The decision making has really gotten faster, and I'm sure it's going to get much more faster in coming days. The second has been the way we approach to the market. It has changed, and now the entire ecosystem of the organizations, they have come together to make it, taking the organization more and more digitized. And digitization would not be part of typically it used to be earlier about SCM or production and so on and so forth. Because I always considered pharmaceutical industry as an industry of paradox. And why do I say so? One side, we have the best infrastructure in terms of manufacturing plant and systems. Still, we were considered to be laggard as compared to other industries in many terms. Similarly, we were very, very stringent in terms of regulatory and compliances. But when it comes to digitization, again, we were lagging behind. But now, this particular period has, really fastened the things, speed up the things, and it got attention of management. It got the attention of the professionals of the pharma. And I'm seeing that next 2 to 3 years are going to be really different years. And also the way India has contributed to the overall world community in these trying times, I'm sure we would have much more higher image in the minds of the people around the world. So that's my comment at this moment.
Thank you, Mr. Sisodia. And in your comment also, it is evident that decision making has become faster, and especially in the last 1 year experience, when the industry is going on through innovations, decision making has to be very faster, delivery has to be very faster, and the processes have to be really faster than the previously happened. So here it comes, when we talk right now, we have a renowned technology provider also with us, from SAP India. We have Vice President for Consumer and Life Sciences Industry, SAP India, Mr. Pravesh Ghai. Mr. Pravesh, I would like to ask you, as you listen to all these leaders about how they see the industry evolving. I would like to know from you that from a technology provider's point of view, what kind of latest digital transformation trends you think that pharma industry has adopted or has to adopt, looking at the new transformation journey of pharma industry. I would request for your views, Mr. Pravesh Ghai, please.
Thank you, Karthik. Good afternoon, everyone. I think all the co-panelists have covered various aspects of the transformation or evolution of business given in the current environment, and what are some of the areas where organizations are trying to leverage technology to be able to really transform or bridge the gap in the way they are addressing to these current challenges, right? So what we have seen is that pharma companies typically globally, historically, operate in a very, very rapidly evolving kind of market environment, which is characterized typically by unpredictable product lines or the uncertain regulatory environments that they operate in. Very highly regulated industry. And what COVID-19 has done is actually has created a tremendous stress on the pharma industry, both India as well as globally, as we are aware of that. And the impact, I think, of this whole COVID situation is likely to continue for many, many more years to come. What we are seeing is that pharma companies are facing a very challenging physical environment where there is a significant chunk of supply chain disruptions happening, and there is a huge volatility in demand. There are demand spikes happening in different parts of the world, and they are really working really hard in a challenging environment to be able to cater to this demand. Right, the business remains under pressure to be able to get products to the patient and keep their employees, customers safe as much as possible. Right. Historically, pharma companies also try to ensure that they keep on coming out with new product launches to offer competitive portfolio of products, to ensure that the treatment of patients is being provided globally. Having said that, I think there are 3 or 4 areas we are seeing technology is playing a very, very significant role, right? The significant area of those actually is the supply chain area. I think Atanu did call it out. What we are seeing is organizations are trying to see how do they build resilient supply chain, given the current environment of huge volatility in the demand as well as supply side disruptions. What we have seen is that it's very interesting statistics if you look at that global pharma supply chain companies actually work in an environment where there is a significant imbalance, with pretty much close to 40% of manufacturing sites for API business at least are all located either in India or in China. There is also a situation where Asia typically produces around half of the global pharmaceutical production, but represents around 18% of the consumption on the demand side, right? So there is a huge imbalance as far as the demand and supply is concerned. And on top of it, what we have seen is that COVID-19 has really squeezed the current critical supplies or the raw material of the drug components which are required for the pharma companies to ensure that there is a uninterrupted supply available to be able to cater to the kind of demand supplies which are coming in. And their dependence on some of these far-flung supply chains actually have created a huge risk to be able to cater to this demand. There are 2 or 3 areas where we are seeing companies are trying to leverage technology to be able to create an impact. One, obviously, it's try to address in a very tactical way how they can impact the supply side constraints by trying to leverage technology to improve the outputs, right? Basically, trying to improve the production yields or the production lines outcomes by leveraging digitization. What we have seen is that organizations are leveraging digital manufacturing capabilities to be able to track the overall equipment effectiveness, as we call it as, And that typically, if you track it very, very closely from the performance monitoring perspective, it has anywhere between 3 to 5-6% impact on the improvement in the yields for the manufacturing process. Same way, we have also seen that if you try to improve the fluctuating yields across various batches, because quality gets impacted due to fluctuation in the quality of the batches which are being produced, and if you reduce those rejections, typically to try and identify to produce the golden batches, what we have seen is that additional 7 to 10% improvement in the production yields is being secured by the companies. Another thing what we are seeing is that companies on the demand side have started using some of the AI algorithms to be able to predict demand and reduce the overstocking to ensure that there is the right product inventory available at the right place, right? Another thing on the supply chain side is adaptability. Organizations are finding ways to adopt more modular approach of manufacturing, enabling companies to be able to shift production or assign supply to various locations depending on where demand and supply, spikes are being occurring, so that they ensure that there is a balance between those demand and supply. And that adaptability aspect in the manufacturing is bringing in huge flexibility to be able to address the demand supply challenges, right? So supply chain, trying to build resilient supply chains, I think is one of the key areas organizations are looking at. Atanu spoke about, again, digital manufacturing. I think that's another area we are seeing that Industry 4.0 based technical capabilities are helping organizations to be able to at least reduce their cost of manufacturing. What we have seen is that globally, organizations are experience around anywhere between 15 to 20% reduction in the manufacturing cost. Typically, it's delivered by areas like, increasing the delivery reliability, or, by optimizing a reduction of raw material conversion into the drugs from the cost perspective, right? 10 to 15% reductions are being seen. Typically, in the digital manufacturing side, at least a couple of areas organizations are seeing is how do they use advanced analytics to be able to optimize the maintenance processes so that the downtime could be reduced and the both production yields or the production uptimes could be secured in a significant way. We have also seen that organizations have started gathering the real-time data from the manufacturing equipment, that they use in the plants to be able to produce an overview of entire production system. And this can rapidly spot the problems and the performance gaps, and that can help them to be able to bring a significant chunk of improvement. So overall, trying to get the entire manufacturing process by leveraging Industry 4.0 capabilities is really helping organizations in a big way to be able to digitize the entire manufacturing processes. So that's the second area. Third, what we have seen is that organizations historically, at least in a pre-COVID kind of environment, were trying to do some bit of technology investments to transform what we call it as the experience of their customers, which largely in this case, let me say, are the doctors and patients, right? So typically what we have seen is that globally, the physicians' engagement with various digital channels from the pharma companies has been operating at a very, very low click rates. In India, what we have seen that it operates anywhere between 10 to 15%. Globally, though, it is upwards of 40%. And what we have seen is that pharma companies are trying to leverage technology to transform this whole experiences by leveraging some of the channels that they reach out to the doctors. So, for example, historically, it used to be emails, then it became SMS. WhatsApp has played a big role these days. So, trying to optimize the channels, trying to optimize the content, right? Some of the publication findings, clinical case studies, or the clinical test results finding, or some of the formats that they are sharing the information, which could be videos, articles, journals, etc. So they are basically trying to build a omni-channel kind of platform to be able to help transform knowledge sharing, new product details sharing with the doctors to be able to really, really transform experience leveraging the digital channels. And the last thing I think Naren spoke about is largely trying to see how do organizations harness the power of data, whether it's manufacturing or the key operations or the distribution aspects of their business. There is huge chunk of data which gets created, and organizations are finding ways and means to be able to leverage. Again, I will say IoT, AI, or robotics, or automation, or all of those Industry 4.0 capabilities to be able to harness the power of this data to really build what we call it as intelligent enterprise and drive some of those insights to be able to run their business. So these are the 3 or 4 areas we have seen technology is helping pharma companies to transform the way they do business, even under those regulatory constraints, and really transform the business on an ongoing basis.
Thank you, Mr. Pravesh Ghai, and I would like to come to you, Mr. Pushkar. Mr. Pushkar, but you listen to these CIOs, these pharma leaders, and also from the technology provider side, Mr. Pravesh Ghai. One thing is evident that yes, there is a demand, and there is has to be a brisk supply, and at the same time there should be usage of modern technologies, and technology can enable more and more faster processes, faster delivery, and more transformation in pharma industry. So I would like to request you to ask some of the questions to these speakers, and please take over from here.
Sure, sure. Thanks, Karthik. Am I audible? Yeah.
Yes,
So
yes.
I had a couple of questions. Maybe I'll start off with Mr. Saini. In your organization, obviously you have started off a proactive journey in terms of digital transformation itself. So wanted to basically understand your perspective. How do you go ahead and look at it? What are your insights that you would want to share with the audience today? And then most important, what do you see as the key milestones and some of the session, the vision, or rather, what is the end vision per se, if I was to go ahead and put it? And then, I would want to ask exactly the same question to Dr. Parab as well as Mr. Atanu Roy. So, Mr. Seni, if you could share and enlighten us in terms of how did you and your organization embark on this particular journey, and share your perspectives on this.
Yeah, thanks, Pushkar. So, a few things. I think Atanu and Parab can continue to add to that. So, one thing is probably to start with the vision, right? With a vision statement, and to build a roadmap, maybe 2 to 3 years journey towards what a digital enterprise would look like, right? So that road mapping is extremely important to what we plan to do at Lupin, and probably it's going to be more or less the same for other pharma companies as well. That's one thing. Second thing is that there are a lot of silos, and I think everybody would agree that these silos over a period of time, it's but natural that these silos come in, because at some point of time we adopted one technology, at some other time the new technology has come in and they have started working of their own, more of a siloed approach. So that's where we probably need to break silos to bring in a platform approach. So a platform approach will basically mean that consolidation of applications, in different areas would also be possible through a platform approach, and that's the two of main important aspects of how we look at the transformation, by and large. Apart from that, of course, stakeholder communication, and bringing everyone on the board, and executing those things is a challenge which probably everyone has, but yeah, that's yet to be seen. What I was also mentioning earlier, Mr. Pushkar, is that that this last 1 year has given the sufficient push to the business as well as the management to actually go in that direction, so that really helped. These are some of the inputs that I would want to start with. Over to you, Avdut.
Okay, thank you, Narendra. Thank you, everyone. One of the areas which I would say, see, everyone is going either customer centric as a digital transformation, or operation excellence as a focus. So these are the two areas which is being really a focus. Now, while we are each one of us embracing into a digital transformation or a journey, one area which is distinctly coming out is a integrated KPI approach. And what does this mean is, when we are implementing systems earlier, or whether compliance as a focus, functionality as a focus, process as a focus, or a function as a focus, we hardly entered into an area of can I look at integrated KPI as an approach. Many a time it happens that, let's say, take an example, supply chain say that I met 90% of my KPIs, or some other function which is in close coordination, collaboration, could be quality, could be your vendor distribution. So they said that, okay, I also met, my manufacturing says I met 90. But if each one making 90, 90, 90, it still doesn't remain as a 90. It still comes to 70, or it comes below 70 as an integrated KPI. And who takes that ownership was never getting addressed. And this is what is getting addressed largely, as this is one of the initiatives we are also looking at it. How do we look at it as an integrated KPI, which would be a real outcome of my digital? In silos, everybody performs. In integrated, and Atanu brought up this OEE and all, which is nothing but a more or less the integrated approach. So this particular point is going to be a major outcome of what we are doing. This is for internal customer. But again, when you are talking about the external customer, we are very clear. We have been looking, and I'm sure everyone is a two pillar approach: operational efficiency as well as the customer engagement and customer connect. So if we cover this, I think majority of our approach and the strategy, each one look is without forgetting to again inclusive pillars in this is one is the cyber security, and second is the regulatory compliance with all focus, earlier focus of 21 CFR Part 11, which was on a non-digital systems. It could be more lab system, it could be SAP, it could be manufacturing system. But now when you're looking at digital and operational efficiency, where you say review by exceptions or bot coming into the picture, you are handing over the decision making to these digital support system or digital assistants. How does a compliance look at it? Because tomorrow, if if false positive comes or false negative comes, how would you attach an accountability? These are some of the challenges are there, but the focus remains on these two pillars with the inclusive focus on cyber security as well as compliance. That's my view, Pushkar.
Thanks a lot, Parab sir. Atanu sir, if you could share your thoughts on the topic and enlighten the audience in terms of how do you see transformation, how do you see, the change that needs to be implemented per se, and what does business transformation essentially
I think there's some internet bandwidth issue at Mr. Pushkar's end. So, Mr. Atanu Roy, can you please answer the question?
Yeah. So, one of the we had always been implementing different systems, but the way to look at it, in my opinion, in today's context, is so few things. One is that traditionally, pharma was a laggard in adoption of new technologies. I'm talking of Indian pharma companies, and that has changed in the last 5 years. There were some companies in India who were adopting technologies very fast, but majority were delayed in that. So while systems implementations would happen, and that is going to happen, what is very important to put in place is what impact does it create, and how does all these things gel together. So many companies or many teams don't think of it, and then we are unhappy with suboptimal impact of the solutions. So just for example, implementing an ERP, and if you implement really well, the impact it creates is multiple times better. So now it is going to be so many systems all working together, and operational technologies integrating with IT. So for looking at large digital transformation, the key thing which in my opinion, I would suggest is that having the end in mind, what type of end we want to achieve, what type of impact on various things in the business we want to create. For example, we want to reduce defects. We need to know what type of defects we want to reduce, how much we can reduce, getting those baselines in place. If we want to improve supply chain effectiveness, what is the current baseline and what are the problems and how do we want to do it? So we have to very much know the baseline of KPIs which we want to improve, and these KPIs need to be business KPIs, and they have to be co-owned by the respective business teams and the IT teams. So if we want to increase sales and there is a technology solutions which can possibly help in increasing sales, then that has to be co-owned by the business team and the IT team. And similarly, if supply chain OTIF has to be improved, and the current OTIF is 85%, and that needs to be made to 95%, then those has to be jointly owned. In my previous organization, there was an KPI called, on the sales side, especially on the US market, which is, revenue leakage. And that was owned by both the business team and the IT team. And the solution was built, and once it was monitored, and then the revenue leakage came down drastically. So I think having the end objective, which has to be business KPI, I think that is first. Many times we don't spend adequate amount of time on that, and that has to be co-owned. Now, other thing which we have never done in the past is how different systems should talk to each other, so that we have an integrated model that needs to be looked into. So if we look at many of the systems in silos, that has to go. So if there is a product development system, that needs to be integrated with manufacturing system, both at a process as well as a technology. How should the product development from a scale up happen? How should the batch scale up happen? And how does that the specifications gets transferred to the production from the R&D? Are there any mistakes there? So those things all have to be looked at in an integrated way. So that is the third thing. The other thing is learning from other industries, because pharma has been a laggard. So learning from industries like steel, who have adopted technologies, integrated technologies, Industry 4.0 much earlier. And it is a combination of process as well as discrete manufacturing. Those are some of the things. So learning from process industries and discrete and automotive is a very good thing for pharma, because they have been leaders in many of these solution implementation, which has created a very positive business impact. Lastly but not the least, compliance to that extent is not there in any of these industries. Yes, automotive has compliance, but of different nature. But we spend a lot of time, energy in compliance. What I have seen is that technology used for compliance can actually impact in significant productivity improvement. So one needs to think through how we are using the same investment for productivity improvement. OE improvement can happen on a different scale. It is huge, which can happen if it is done well. Other thing is that it is not only the IT tools which we implement. How we implement and use it is very important. I have seen in multiple of the companies where I have worked for, or where I have earlier consulted, a typical module of SAP's plant maintenance gets rolled out. Where it is really rolled out well, the amount of benefit it creates is unthinkable, really unthinkable. But in my opinion, out of 100, only maximum 5 companies have been able to do it. So most of the people just are happy with the transactions which is automating. So we have to really know the power of these tools, what it can do. So I think, and another part is the part which we talked about is the cyber security. The type of cyber security we are talking when OT-IT integration is happening, there is no reference model for that in the past in a more in a proper way. And how you do cyber security, that has to be really thought through. So all these things, pieces have to come together when we plan for digital transformation of Industry 4.0 as we go forward.
Thanks, Atanu sir. Let me come back to Dr. Avadhut Parab. Dr. Parab, within your organization, you took up a significant journey in terms of, upgrading your ERP, moving, on in your SAP journey from ECC 6. So would you be, my request would be if you could share some of the learnings that came out of this particular transformation journey, and what would be the best practices or advice that you would want to share with the audience today, particularly as some of them take up some of these transformations.
Okay, Pushkar, yes, indeed, from the SAP, when we moved to SOH, SAP HANA, the immediate benefit which we seen, and it continues to draw the attention of internal customer, was the speed at which you can get the information, the speed at which you can process it, the speed at which you can, if in the meeting, many a time it happens, can I rerun, can I get those results, and so on and so forth. So this is one of the major thing, and it is not someone who it's IT has said it. It is the user who started getting it. As Atanu mentioned about the revenue leakage in US, of course we are of course also with an SAP Vistax we use it, whether it is chargeback, rebate, Medicaid, government pricing, and so on and so forth. So the processing, the time it is to take from the vendor, so from the customer data coming in, processing it, it was getting into sometime 2 days, 3 days, and then you figuring out if there is some duplicates, if there are all kind of things. So the HANA has literally solved that problem, because it start processing in a very, very short period of time, and and that time I can also very proudly say it was, some of the processes were taking earlier 48 hours, they started coming in 3 to 4 hours. So that was a difference we experienced it. Now this is what the outcome which we got it. This outcome also has helped during our pandemic time, because many a time you always an access. No, if I had to run this process, it'll take me so much hours, so many days, and all kind of thing. So the benefit of that we really drew, because we went live a year before pandemic onto HANA, and then today we feel that if any processes has to be rerun with correction or during the month end on all kind of thing, this became the good outcome of, and I would say that is that was the biggest ROI which we derived from that. We definitely took the processes revamping. That was another learning which we had. We re-looked into every process, whether it is a procurement process, whether it is a finance. I think that every company does it as a part of the business process re-engineering, and that also has paid some good. But overall, I would say the speed of information, especially during a month end, what used to happen is the workload, because we are working with a central instance. The workload has to be so high during the last 2-3 days of the month, and so much processing is to happen, which we could vary. System performance was getting impacted. All those issues just vanished, and last 3-4 years we are seeing that those problems of a user, I cannot give this data, I cannot process this data. If the head of department says that, can you rerun it? So there was has gone away, and at least the the yes and the outcome and outputs have been fairly quick, and it has been helping the organization. So it was, again, this was the internal customer focus, and it has paid the good price about what our investment into it.
Dr. Parab, if I may just have a follow-up question to that. The, I'm sure the pandemic has gone ahead and given us a lot of, I would say, points on which we would want to go ahead and ponder. So, are there any learnings that you would want to say that these are the areas that people need to focus on, particularly in terms of their ERP systems? Uh, Once the pandemic is through, you know, uh, certain things that we need to look at in on priority and take some of those up.
Sorry, Pushkar, you were asking me.
Yes, Dr. Parab, I was saying that any learnings that came out of the pandemic, which you would which you would want to incorporate into your systems as you go forward.
I think more and more, how do we, one of the learning I would say, when we implemented SAP, the focus was more on the internal processes, internal, you know, and optimizing and re-engineering. There was a less focus on looking SAP as a more of an ecosystem. How do I get into my vendor integration? How do I get into my customer integration, partner integration? This is the focus I think we need to relook, because just mere doing efficient in your four wall, it may not be a sufficient now, because everything is going to be connected as we go ahead with it. So that definitely your processes needs to get extended to your partner. How and with the pandemic, this is the right point, because they also feel that they will also not able to continue with silos mode. So everyone is open for integration and co-creating a value. So if this is the case, so how do we increase the canvas of the SAP to our SAP or other systems as well, to the external world, bring that under ecosystems, bring different technology if need be, and then co-create a much larger value. So that would be one of the area which we are also looking into it, though we have initiated, but I'm sure it's going to be a big task to complete.
Thanks a lot, Dr. Parab. Karthik, I'll hand it back to you to take the remainder of the questions up with the panel. So over to you, Karthik.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Parab. You asked some really interesting questions, but I have one question to ask to Mr. Pravesh. Mr. Pravesh Ghai, I would like to ask you that you might be, seeing examples. You work globally with your clients, with your customers, and I just wanted to know from you that various pharma organizations across the world, how they thrived, through these challenging times, and how are they adopting digital transformation. So, if you just share some of the experiences, please.
Sure. Karthik, I'll briefly just highlight broadly 2 or 3 areas as the examples, though there could be a very long list of what companies are trying to do. But if I have to pick up, the single biggest thing, as I said, every organization is trying to put energy and effort. How do they get the supply chains right? How do they get the balance between the whole demand and supply side of things? I think all the energy and efforts are being put in that trying to keep their employees safe. How do they improve the production outcomes, yields, effectiveness, etc., and how do they try to get some bit of right demand signals to be able to strike the balance between the demand and supply? I think that is the single biggest thing every organization is trying to put all the energies and effort. Some of these things are being done in a tactical way. Some of these things are being done by bringing in some bit of process improvements to be able to eliminate or reduce the variances that they see on the demand side forecast, etc. And some of these things are being looked at as a long-term ways to be able to transform the way the business is being run within the organization. So helping organizations to try and build resilient supply chains, trying to use technology as an underlying backbone by transforming processes. I think that continues to be the single biggest thing that we are seeing. And it also has or encompasses some elements of bringing in some bit of digital factories or digital manufacturing, so or some bit of IoT capabilities coming into play, so that they are in a position to be able to improve the yields on the supply side. And so that's one area. Second, I think it was called out. What we are saying is that given that there is a significant shortage of vaccine as well as uh, COVID-related drugs, organizations are trying to see how do they accelerate their entire clinical trials and the new drug development life cycle. So they are trying to run end-to-end digital, discovery processes. So if you look at the entire clinical trials process value chain, starting from discovery to design, development, delivery, support, what we have seen is that organizations which have to leverage digital process or some of the digital tools, they are seeing a 20% reduction in the end-to-end, process timeline or the cycle for the clinical trials of the new drug developments they're trying to do. Uh, Drug development and supply chain continue to be two significant areas that organizations are trying to put, lot of energy and effort. If I have to pick up just third area, though it is being addressed in some of the regulated markets globally, which is trying to track the counterfeit drugs, right? The regulated or the globally regulated markets, this issue has been few years back. Just to give a little bit of statistics here, globally, what we learn and understand, around 1 million people die due to spurious drugs. There is around $1.5 trillion worth of loss to the pharma companies because of the counterfeit drugs being produced in the marketplace. And companies spend almost more than $100 billion to be able to track these counterfeit products. Right? So companies are trying to use various technology solutions to be able to see that they are in a position to be able to track the counterfeit drugs, and they don't allow the current environment of demand, being high and the supply shortages uh, being taken over by supply of some of those spurious products, impacting the COVID environment in a very very significant way. So from short-term perspective, I think these are the three areas, or maybe a few more we are seeing. Organizations are trying to leverage technology to be able to create quick impact, quick wins, and really, really, have impact on the business in the way technology can bring in a transformation element into their business.
Right, Mr. Parvez, rightly given the insights. I don't even have 5 minutes now with me, 3 minutes, but still I'll be requesting 1 minute each of you for giving your final remarks, closing remarks. I'll start with you, Mr. Mahidwaj. What do you think can be the priorities for a business in coming years, and your closing remarks, please?
Yeah, so Karthik, all of us, we discussed enough the significance of the digitization and how do we put it to use when it comes to production, SCM, and also from the commercial point of view. And we have seen a lot of progress already taken place. So it's no more about telemedicines or teleconsultation, it's way beyond that. It has been about our engagement with medical fraternity. It has really deepened up. Lots of data have been made available, and a lot of data has been put to use to improve the overall healthcare system for the humanity around the world. So I'm sure that trend is going to continue and continue to go faster. That would be my closing remark.
Right, Mrs. Sodhia, thank you. Mr. Narendra, your closing remarks, please.
So these are exciting times, I think. A lot of cross-learning that is happening. So I think the priorities for next few years is to look at the roadmap that we are working on, and to revisit the roadmap on a regular basis and see that all the projects that we are embarking on, they are making the right progress. Looking at the integration across these silos, or probably killing some of the silos if possible. So that will be the top priority. Again, second part, which we have covered, looking at the channels, how do we reach out to customers, and how we bridge the gap between demand and supply.
Right. Thank you so much, Mr. Narendra. Dr. Avadhut Parab, your closing remarks, and what sort of key takeaways do you see from this discussion? You're on mute, sir. Can you please unmute yourself?
while agreeing with my co-panelists, have definitely a plan and strategy to move ahead. But one thing we should keep it in mind: just don't bring a technology for sake of technology. If it creates a value, then only you invest. So probably we can set up something, digital lab of within the organization, evaluate it properly, see whether it's really going to give a value, and its value is just not 4 years later, 3 years later. It has to be a quick and it should be a multiplier and not just I will see a value and all. So those things, if there is a doubt, it is better not to invest into any technology because the options and avenues are too many now. Challenges will be there, but we need to embrace them. That's my answer.
Thank you, Dr. Parab. I request Mr. Roy to your closing remarks, please.
So I echo the thoughts which my co-panelists have mentioned. It is very clear what needs to be done from a digital transformation perspective. Most of us know these are the things to be done from a roadmap perspective, and the end state we are very clear. I would like to reinforce what Abdul said just a few minutes back, that just jumping into technology is not going to be the solution. One needs to evaluate carefully and ensure that the benefits come through, and that is where a lot of creativity is there, and alignment of internal people, and those things are extremely important, and how it is executed. So execution is the key, and that how to execute it so that the benefits come through is very, very important. The other part is, while we are designing all these solutions, the information cyber security and backup restoration for any of these solutions is going to be extremely important. A connected ecosystem, a connected enterprise will have a ransomware which can encrypt the whole enterprise, and then it can stop any business which we are doing. So suppose if there is a cyber attack today, a big cyber attack today in any of the pharma companies in India, you can, as such, medicines are on shortage, what will happen, you can well imagine. So cyber security and the high availability of infrastructure and the resilience of it is extremely important, and that tends to be.
Thank you, Mr. Roy. Mr. Gyan Pandey, your final remarks, please.
Thanks, Karthik. I think very well summed up by our co-panelist. Over and above, what I would like to add is that, yes, this journey for adoption of digital and with this consideration of whether it is compliance or cybersecurity will continue, keeping what is the objective of the business and what the end result we are going to achieve. One more thing which I think will evolve parallelly, especially in the pharma industry, we are still talking about more on data and information, which needs to get translated into the kind of some knowledge. In pharma, most of the knowledge, whether in terms of paper, in terms of process, still remains in the silos. More we move towards the connected organizations or and connected enterprise, we also need to have this connected knowledges where we can perform better.
Thank you, Mr. Pandey. Mr. Pushkar, as a co-moderator, your final words, please. If you would like to.
Sure, thanks, Karthik. I think we are going through certain very critical times where a lot of things are which we thought were given, correct, or which were table stakes, hygiene. These are all being challenged in multiple ways, and it is forcing us to ask some of the uncomfortable questions that we sometimes used to go ahead and shy away from. But I think overall what is happening is that with the kind of challenges that the pandemic has thrown, I believe that we will move into a regime that will be much more robust, which will be much more agile, and which will also go ahead and balance between the regulatory aspects, the need for the industry to be regulated, but at the same time to be more innovative in terms of how it approaches the issues and problems. And I think key to this will be the way data gets used, the knowledge gets harvested, and people come and look at things in a holistic way rather than in a siloed manner. So those would be some of the thoughts that are coming to my mind. Karthik, over to you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Pushkar. There are a lot of questions from audience, but we are not in the situation to take those questions. We'll share the questions with you offline. And finally, we are honored to felicitate the leaders of Pharma and with Elets Pharma Leadership Awards. And today, the CIOs and the leaders who have joined us in this panel, we would like to present the Pharma Leadership Award to them. It is just a small token of appreciation and respect from our side. They deserve quite more than that, but it is our honor to give this award. Start with Mr. Atanu Roy, Group CIO of Biocon Group. Thank you so much for doing so much for this pharma industry, Mr. Atanu, and we are glad to present this award to you. Dr. Avadhut Parab of Vocart Pharmaceuticals. Thank you so much for your contribution to pharma industry, Dr. Parab. And next, Mr. Narendra Saini from Lupin. Thank you so much, Mr. Narendra Saini, and we congratulate you for being the Pharma Leadership Award winner of the first Elets Pharma Leadership Award. Thank you so much. And then Mr. Gyan Pandey from Aurobindo Pharma for being a leader and great contributor to the pharma industry. So in the presence of our prime partner SAP, we are awarding these awards, and also to Mr. Mahidwaj Sisodia from Cadila Pharmaceuticals Limited for being a leader and contributor in the pharma industry. So in the presence of SAP India, we are awarding these leaders for their phenomenal contribution in the pharma industry. And also we will be presenting the speaker certificates to all of you. And we are sharing the speaker certificate here of Mr. Pravesh Ghai, Vice President of Consumer and Life Sciences Industry, SAP India, for joining us and sparing time and sharing thoughtful ideas, and Mr. Pushkar Bhatt for wonderfully co-moderating this discussion. Mr. Pushkar Bhatt is lead SAP Digital Core in SAP India for subcontinent. Thank you so much, Mr. Pushkar Bhatt. And all the other speaker certificates we'll be emailing you to all the speakers. And congratulations to the award winners. And thank you so much for being participating in this session, which was about business transformation and future prospects in pharma industry. And thank you so much for being there. Here we close this session. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks everyone.
Thank you, Karthik. Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Bye.